then it'll stop.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this event. Today we have Raghu Chandrasekharan from Clean. He is the founder and CEO. And yeah, we're excited to have you here. So first, just a little housekeeping things. It would be very much appreciated if everyone could be on mute when the presentation is going on. That way there's no background noise or any distractions. But yeah, I'll hand it off to Ram and then Ram will hand it off to Raghu.
All right.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. It's very exciting to have you all join us today for this very interesting session. We are very excited to have Raghu join us. I'll get to that in a second here. But before we do that, let me just go through my standard pitch of what we are all about here, considering there are a number of folks here that may be new to the TiE as an organization and TiE Dallas in particular. We are an organization for entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs. We have been in Sanju, you want me to drive this or should I, will you go to the next slide? Yeah. Actually, you know what? I made some updates. Let me do this. Let me drive it from my end, if that's okay. Because I made a couple of quick little updates. It may be easier that way. Give me just a second. Okay, everybody able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the organization itself is basically dedicated to entrepreneurship, celebrating entrepreneurship. It's a global organization, started out in Silicon Valley a number of years ago, and we in the Dallas chapter are obviously connected to chapters in the state as well as in every city and continent around the world. We have incubated a number of startups as a broader organization mothership, if you will, as in TiE, as well as a number of startups here in Dallas that we have had the opportunity to launch, incubate, mentor, coach, and take them to the next level. The overall mission is all about mentoring, coaching, funding, and then growing these organizations, growing these startups through a variety of different initiatives. These initiatives are catering to different demographics. Here is a quick little summary that shows some of the flagship programs we have in place. The Young Entrepreneur Program, which is the one that has been the longest in existence, started over 10 years ago, catering to high schoolers, catching them young and nurturing them, engaging them in a dialogue about what entrepreneurship is all about, and then taking them through a boot camp type setting for about 3 months, and then having them pitch to a panel of judges. And we have graduated over the years about 250 kids through this program. We are very proud of that program. Similar to that, the TiE University program caters to university level students. Shorter, compressed journey for them, but equally promising. And last year was our first year in that with that program, and our team went on to win at the global level. And we're very proud of that achievement. TiE Women, as the name implies, is identifying, promoting, celebrating women entrepreneurs. Again, last year was our first year with that program. This year, we're getting ready to launch our 2021 initiative. The regional competition is going to be held in September, late August, early September. And then the winner will go on to represent Dallas at Dubai in the global event. And last but not the least, the TiE Angels program is bringing together various activities around nurturing ideas, startups through a very formal set of steps that we will take them through. We have had a number of startups come through the funnel last year. Based on that modest success we had, this year we're further formalizing it and scaling it to the next level. So more to come on that in the coming weeks and months. So we have this TiE Tuesday initiative that brings different ideas and products to a group, and then having the opportunity to listen from them, and then offline we will work with them, understand where they are in their journey, and then take them to the next level as appropriate by providing the necessary mentorship. And then it becomes a funnel for us to feed into the angel program. So across the board, we are able to cater to different. One second. Whether you're a startup entrepreneur needing coaching, mentoring, it caters to you. If you're a seasoned entrepreneur, been there, done that type of business man or woman, or investors, we provide this platform to make available talent and then opportunities for you to invest and have the ability to give back to the community. So, and then finally for corporates, we are engaging the corporates to work with them in their diversity and inclusion initiatives, and also make the organization be a partner of theirs when it comes to looking at talent and supporting intrapreneurial activities with what's going on inside these organizations. So whatever group you might fall into, there is something for you to benefit from. So it obviously requires a whole team to make it all happen. Here is a quick summary of the various folks involved, chairing different initiatives: the university initiative, the TiE initiative, TiE Women initiative, TiE Angel program, and others that are chairing specific functions. So these are all the folks that make it all happen. So I'll leave it at that as a brief summary, and encourage all of you to get more active and more involved with Dallas.tie.org is the site to go to and learn more about us, or reach out to any one of us, and we'll welcome your engagement, input, and any way you can get benefited from this organization. So with all that said, let me just make a quick intro to Raghu and hand over the floor to him. So he's got a fascinating story about how this business was formed 10 plus years ago. And what is great about this is it's a profitable enterprise which has a very strong message about a social impact, being able to provide something we all take for granted, electricity, and we don't think of it very often, but it's amazing to think there's so much of the population in the world that is without electricity. So it's really remarkable to see what kind of a social impact it has had. And frankly, it hit home to me when we went through the crisis in February here in Texas, to realize that this actually is a day-to-day affair for a big chunk of the population in the world. So I got all the more interested, and we had a lot of discussions back and forth, and then I became an investor in his company. And then last but not the least, Raghu and I go way back. We are actually from the same university. We share an alma mater. So I'm very proud to call him a dear friend, and happy to collaborate with him in terms of where this whole initiative is being taken. So I will leave it at that, and take it away, Raghu. You're muted, Raghu. You may have to
Thank you.
yourself.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you. Thank you, Ram. Thank you. Can I change over to the share screen?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Your screen is not showing yet, is it? Oh,
yes.
Yeah,
now
it's coming.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here, and thank you, Ram, for a very nice introduction. And thank you so much. And Russ, thank you so much for joining the session. I just want to, you know, start out by a brief journey about how I got into this. Sanjukta, just for your clarification, this is my organization, eHands Energy, but I'm also on the board of the Pan India Association of all the mad men and women like me, as I call the social enterprises, which is focused on energy access and clean cooking. That is called Clean. So I think you used that logo, but essentially I am talking about eHands Energy here. So just to clarify that. So I think there is a little bit of brief about my background, and I used to be in the corporate world. I was also in the States for about 3 years. I was the head of Polaris Software from 1997 to 2001. I built up Polaris from ground zero to about $130 million business. By the time I left, 500 odd people came. Then my first social venture was in 2002 when I started uh, a wireless service using the technology developed by IIT Madras in India, which is wireless in local loop on Cordec, on the TDMA platform protocol. And I took that to the very remote parts of the hill like this, what you're seeing on the screen. And I was moved by the children walking 10 miles away up and down every day. And I thought that we should do something, to make them stay in the village and do their, have their learning. So IBM gave me the hardware, the kiosk, and another, software company, and the Khan Academy also gave the courseware. Everything was all done up to start the e-learning, almost 20 years back. And then our engineers went there and said that, well, everything is fine, but where is the electricity? So that's the time we realized, like Ram said, even I had taken it for granted. So that project was abandoned, and so then I came back to the corporate world and worked for some time, and then I took charge of that as an issue. So we are in the business of providing the last mile electricity to these very remote places, and we're trying to do our best to cover as many as we can. So I'll quickly walk you through what exactly is this decentralized renewable energy or off-grid. So the world of renewable energy, particularly the solar, I'm not talking about wind or any other energy. The solar segment, the solar industry can be segmented broadly into four segments. One is the utility scale of power plants, which feed the grid, and that's what US is all about. And then within the country also, there are large scale commercial and industrial solar installation for the captive use, and occasionally that is also exported back to the grid. Most of the countries have a very clear framework of policies for internal use and export. And the third category or the segment is the residential and small scale rooftop plants, which is typically 1 kilowatt and up, if you are familiar with kilowatt. And finally, the segment that we operate is the decentralized, independent, off-grid. Often they are storage, battery-driven, very heavy investments go into the batteries. So the segment 4 is largely impact, driven, and social goal as social impact as a goal. At this point of time, I'd like to bring a story about the movie called Swades, a Bollywood movie. There's Shah Rukh Khan is the hero in that. So there's a scene where, of course, he works in the village to get electricity to that village through hydropower. But when the electricity reaches the home of an old lady, 100-year-old lady, her face brightens up, and she says, "Wow, electricity!" And that's what we see every year. Thousands of people. It's still, it's still not available to everybody. Millions of people don't have access to electricity, and they are called as the first-time users, FTUs, of electricity. And in India itself, it is supposed to be close to 200 million, although the government says that no, everything is electrified, but it's a little fuzzy data. So the problem is the lack of electricity in the last mile, and within that, what area we have chosen to work on is including the people into the grid, or giving them electricity and then enabling them to have financial inclusion, and also, as I said, the know-how, technology, everything. Once electricity is available, a whole lot of things can happen. So we focused on financial inclusion in the last 7 years. That's because the banks were not at all growing in the rural areas. This is the data from the Reserve Bank of India. More than 10% of the branches that is grown is only in the, I mean, on average, or only in the metros, but they're very poor in the rural areas. Similarly, this is again an estimated data that 90 million households lack reliable electricity. I mean, they do get, but it's probably like 10 hours a day the power is not available, and things like. And they're not far from the fully functional national grid, and yet they don't get. So now imagine the villages which are far away, which are off road, off the mobile network, and off the grid. They don't have anything. So that's the problem area we decided to focus on, and we have developed our own solution, or a package of solution, um, to address this. So the uh, the basic package that we offer is to provide a comprehensive solar power plant, very small, 1 kilowatt to 10 kilowatt range. Sometimes it goes bigger than that, but most often it is like 4 to 5 kilowatt capacity, quite a small one with battery, to the bank. And that's one line of business. I'll explain the business model later. And then also implementing what we call as productive microgrid. So which means it's not just about providing electricity just for the lights or the fans and things like. It also has capacity to run, let's say, a oil extraction machine, or power loom, a weaving machine, or anything, or at least solar powered water pumping for irrigation. So these are together called productive microgrids. There is something that they can look forward to once electricity is arrived, uh, for their improvement of livelihood, or their earning. So on the branch powering, we are pretty good in terms of maintaining these branches, and we provide very high uptime. And we have seen that we have been able to provide faster access to financial inclusion once the branch is solar powered. So the most famous financial inclusion scheme of India, and which is probably the largest scheme in the world, is the Prime Minister's Jan Dhan Yojana, which is called PMJDY. Um, After the scheme was launched, about 200 million people have come into the formal banking system of India. Our contribution is very small, but these are in very remote, very difficult places in the hills of Himalayas Himalayan terrain. The Naxalite, or the insurgent affected areas within India, where no one used to do any productive work. So we have managed to get our solar system out there and get those people into the banking. And of course, we have won several awards for such work that we have done. We have about 32 microgrids. So the focus is, as I said, the first time users, who've never seen electricity. But it's not that all the capital is from us, so we have kind of, worked out a model where we get the CSR or the corporate social responsibility money from the large Indian corporates or large multinational corporates and blend it with our own capital. So the capital is kind of subsidized, and then we put our own resources, and then we also collect some money from the villagers to sustain it. So we call this as a blended finance model. And actually, it is a case study by itself, and we have presented it in Asian Development Bank. The world's largest private charity, which is United Way, which has a fundraising of about $5 billion. I used to be on the board of United Way in India. And the world's largest development fund, which is in Asia, Asian Development Bank, both did not know each other. ADB was funding again development work, and United Way was also funding so many development or social impact work, but they didn't know each other. So I decided that this is the model to work on, and we got together, and we have done few, but it's still a long way to go. So the blended finance of philanthropic capital and commercial capital, I think, is a way forward, and we have done some work in that area. So our focus is inclusion, whether it is energy inclusion or financial inclusion. So just giving you a brief summary on what does eHands do. As I said, it's a social enterprise. Much of our time in the early days, I was very fascinated with a small wind turbine, the small wind turbine technology. I used to be on the board of a South African company and used to travel to every quarter to Johannesburg and Port Elizabeth. And I saw the small wind turbines on top of the football stadium, the FIFA stadium in Port Elizabeth, and I was amazed. I've never seen a wind turbine on the rooftop. And then I went around and checked, and that was being made in South Africa. And then I signed up, and I got them to India. And so it was very fascinating, very, very technology intensive. These are like 0.6 kilowatt to 3.5 kilowatt. So much of our early days was in exploring these and these turbines, how it works. So we are considered pioneers in India on this. Even now, there are only 5 manufacturers. We had a manufacturing plant in 2011 for this. Even now, there are only 5 or 6 who are approved by the government of India for the government installation, and we are one of them, although we don't do this production anymore. So somewhere, in 2013-14, the prices of solar started dropping dramatically, and the wind was like twice the cost of solar for per kilowatt installation or per energy produced per dollar. So we kind of started, combining the wind and solar, what we call as wind-solar hybrid systems. And then from there, the solar prices even further dropped. And so we have become primarily a solar company. But we do have these turbines in stock. Once in a while, we do that. We have the expertise, we have trained resources, we've been trained in South Africa for a long time. South African company is a global company. They sell their turbines even in the US. It's part of Eveready, and it's actually a subsidiary of Nedbank, one of the largest banks of Africa. So we moved into solar, and ever since then, we have been stabilizing our business model. So the rural branches, powering rural branches, then providing energy to the last mile communities. And also we do what is called as a grid tie solar on the commercial, or for the commercial installations. We have more than 700 installations, and we have been EBITDA positive. The total installed capacity is well over 2 megawatts right now. I'm just giving you a glance of financials, just last 6 years and including the current year. So as you can see, we moved from an asset light company, in the sense our initial days were from 2000, let's say 14, when we started becoming focused on solar and hybrid. we were just selling the capital assets, and we were making sure that we set it up uh, and just maintain it. But somewhere in the last 3 years, we have moved into a OPEX model, or what we call as the rental and lease model. Am I audible to everybody?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. So, any questions up to this point we can take, or should we take it at the end?
Looks like you can keep going, Raghu.
Yeah, okay, all right. So, as you can see, the gross block, the assets have grown 10x and it's still growing. So much of the money that we raise and we have has been put as the assets into the banks, and we charge a rental or a leasing on that. So that's the model that we're stabilizing, and that's where we see tremendous potential to grow. And we think that we are on this ahead of others. There's no rocket science, but it is very operational intensive, very support intensive. You really have to be pan India to do this. So that's just a brief on our financials. Now, coming to the business model. So even during COVID, we managed to grow just on financials, and we used to have most of our revenues coming only in the fourth quarter of more than 50% of the revenue, because we were working with the uh, the corporates on CSR, and they all used to rush up things in the month of January. As you know, India follows a financial year from April to March, and they all used to, give the money in the month of February and say that, okay, please, Russia, put this microgrid. But that has, changed now, and I mean, that didn't happen in the COVID time. So this entire revenue in the last 2 years is only from the what do you call leasing or rental model, and that's something that we are conscious about. So the business model, the core business as we call, is setting up solar, the financial inclusion as a focus, and our solution is fairly stable and simple. Even in the remotest area of the country, we provide 98% uptime. All these branches are monitored by a remote monitoring system. Of course, the RMS doesn't work very well if there is no mobile network or stable mobile network. But we do have a system of monitoring. We have a back office monitoring that, and we provide the uptime report to the banks, and that's how they pay us the monthly money. And then one of the innovative things that we have done is we can't be sending up our engineers everywhere. So we have empaneled about 100 plus electricians or technicians for on demand. They are local electricians in the town or village. As mentioned earlier, we are present in more than 500 towns across the country. So we have somebody there who's on demand, and we pay him the first level support. If it doesn't get resolved on the telephone, then this person lands up there. And then there is a video session from our service center hub in Chennai or any other place. They learn how to do that. Our track record shows that close to 90% of the problems are resolved in that manner. So this is our core cash earning business, and the impact business is the microgrid. There also we earn, but then that's not the focus. We are looking at creating impact by inclusion. And then finally, on the carbon footprint reduction, we do want to engage with large companies wherever we are competitive, and provide the large solar plants on the rooftop so that significant carbon footprint reduction can happen. So this is the model that we have stabilized in the last, 6-7 years, where we we provide the solar to the branch powering, I mean, to the branches of financial institutions, as I said, on both capital asset sale, and that's called capex, and also on leasing, what is called as opex. Typically, these contracts are anything between 5 to 8 years with a lock-in of 4 years. So if the bank walks away from the lease, so far nobody has done it, if they have to pay the entire lease amount. And at the end of the lease period of 5 or 8 years, we would be transferring the assets to them at the return down value. So this is the most popular model that is emerging, and quite a quite a good IRR, and also the carbon credits are on the books of eHands. So the second model is where we put up the grid and we collect on what is called as a pay-as-you-go model. So we, although some of them are automated, but bulk of them we have to send our foot soldier and collect that fee, as low as $3 a month. And the rooftop solar is totally on capex. We don't put our money and have have a power purchase agreement. We don't do that model. We don't have that bandwidth to do that. So we, wherever feasible, we just give a capital sale model. So that's the rooftop commercial model. Coming to the what makes us survive, and even during the COVID, we have managed to survive. We didn't lay off anybody. We have 50 families to feed, and we paid full salary to everybody. That's because the core business, the banking business, kept us paying, and we thought that as much as possible, we'll keep these people on our rolls and help them. So I think we are over the curve now, and we see more inquiries coming. So the strengths are this stable cash flow, and then we are known for our work in high altitudes. The highest installation we have is at 16,000 feet. So the government, the army, and the paramilitary, all of them keep calling us. But we take very little project because the gestation period for implementing all this is very long. The payment cycles are even longer. But we do that, and that's our competitive edge or advantage. And then, of course, we have pan-India footprint. If a large bank or a financial institution which has a pan-India presence wants to roll out solar, because they're all centralized, they have they have a command center in one place, whether it is Mumbai or Delhi. They want to deal with a company which can handle everything. They don't want to deal with 10 different regional companies. So there we come in top of the list, most often. So that is also opening up, and of course, I've been in the corporate world, so there are a lot of my colleagues in senior positions. So we leverage that. So this is the a package of what we are strong about. As I said, the most important learning after the COVID is that we see I'll just show you shortly. We see the branch powering business surging up dramatically. In fact, we are running out of our resources and bandwidths to match up to the speed at which the banks are demanding the growth. So we investigated why is it happening. It's happening because the government is doing what is called as direct benefit transfer. And yes, they all have these fintech apps in their phones, and a lot of things are happening on the revolution on the fintech. But these people do need to go to the branch once in a while for some service, signing up the accounts, and maybe even withdraw cash. And that's what we see, that the COVID has, the positive side of COVID is that the cash rotation in the village, the government subsidies is going up. I'll just skip this. I mean, just briefly mention that the number of awards and recognitions we have won. The most important I would like to mention is we partnered with Dr. Robert Swan, the man who's trying to save Antarctica and do more scientific-oriented climate change intervention. And we actually sponsored one of our associates, and we're very proud. And Dr. Swan has given a big endorsement about us, and that's almost visible in all climate change events. The other thing is that we get volunteers from the large cap corporates of Japan, the likes of Sony, Hitachi, and Nissan, things like. So they send their what they call as upwardly mobile young executives to select social enterprises in India, and we are one of them. And although all of them have their big operations in India, they don't attach these volunteers to their Indian office. They attach them to the social enterprises like us, because they want these young executives to get hands-on experience about the social issues in India, and so that when they go up in their hierarchy in the corporate world, in their organization, they have a good understanding of the consumers at the bottom of the pyramid. We are very proud that we have done this for about 30 odd people, cutting across Sony, Nissan, Toyota, Panasonic, everybody. So I was actually called by Panasonic in 2018 and felicitated for what they call as building the bridge between the young Japanese and India. The other thing is we also got a grant from Electrify, which is a sovereign fund of European Union for creating the first-time electricity users among the many recognitions that we have. So I just walk you through quickly the case study of what we have done to, this India's largest private bank. I'm not supposed to put it on writing. We have several non-disclosures on putting it on writing, but it is ICICI Bank, which is our primary client. So they had burnt, the case is that they had burnt their finger about 5-6 years back by investing heavily on solar on a capex or a capital equipment sale model. And those vendors or those suppliers didn't take care of those systems. So a huge investment on solar was kind of rotting. And that's the time we stepped in and said that we take it as a challenge. We will turn around those things, and wherever it is required, we'll fix it. We'll put our assets and make it operational. So they started very cautiously. They gave us just one branch, tested it for more than like almost 6 months. And then they gave 55 more branches. And then, of course, we're not looking back. We are now on 226 and 50 more under execution. And the potential is huge. It could, reach even 1,000 million rupees, just with just one bank. If we have the, a right kind of alignment on our cash flows and capital, available to us. So that's just, growth in a span of just 3 years. We have grown, 2.5 years we have grown, and we expect to grow even further. Similarly, on microgrid capacity also, we are constantly investing and growing. Coming to, what is the potential for this off-grid or this DRE for us. So one is the number of branches or the bank's branches. So there are so many rural branches, close to 120 or 130,000. Even if we assume 10% of it, it's a huge business. So similarly, the villages, even if we do 10% of these villages on an assumption of $30 a year plus per household for the next 5 years, it's again a very big steady revenue. And if the corporates are spending money on several things as part of their social responsibility, on education, on sanitation, on healthcare, but they do spend money also on energy access. So 5% of their money is what is going into energy. And within that, even if you take 5% share, it's $2.5 million. So we are sitting at a potential of $20 million for us to be achieved in the next 3 to 4 years. This is just a quick view on the social impact that we are aligned to the Sustainable Development Goal, SDGs, fully. And the most important thing is the clean energy, the number of units generated, and the carbon footprint. So we also track, as I said earlier, the number of people coming into the formal financial inclusion or the formal banking system, and and the amount of money that is being transacted. Although it's not very accurate data, but we believe that we have crossed $500 million of disbursement through the branches that we have solar powered, based on the numbers that ICICI Bank and the other two big banks are Union Bank of India, UBI, which is now Andhra Bank and UBI together, and RBL Bank. So we serve two big private banks and one public sector bank. So carbon footprint, much of it is on our books. Right now, the trading value of carbon credit is very low. But at some point of time, at the peak of the carbon trading, it was going at $60 a credit. And very soon, the World Bank says that it will go back to that. The current administration in US is very focused on it, and that should US will be driving. And you can see already they've put so many schemes in place, and that would benefit every every country and every entity working on clean energy and focused on carbon credit. We save most of it in the important place. This is just a map to give an idea that where all do the DRE systems work or is needed. So as you can see, the Indian subcontinent, or for that matter, all of South Asia and Southeast Asia, barring a few countries like Thailand, which is fully electrified, need they have poor electricity. Then all of Africa except South Africa, and vast part of Latin America or South America. So that's the market, and it is estimated to be $60 billion, the off-grid segment. But the driver for North America, United States or Europe, or to some extent Australia, is the climate change. That's the driver. And that's, of course, a very big market. It's a $1 trillion market. It could be more, even more. But as I said, we are focused on the yellow dot. This is our team. Karthik is, I think, here. He's the director, managing the commercial, was part of the supply chain. Ketan is the vice president. He's based in Mumbai. Most of our clients are Mumbai-based. He's the face of the organization. And Sabri is the chief technology officer. And finally, this presentation also, I want to make the offer that we are raising funds for our ongoing needs, and we have raised money in the past, and currently we are looking at CCPS Series 2, and we will I'll be happy to share this details with anyone interested. The valuation for a social enterprise like us is very complex. I would say the valuation drivers are, few of them. One is that for us, we are actually building our own remote monitoring system. So because we need a high quality RMS, so there's a lot of investment going into R&D, and that product, whenever it is developed, has a $100 million global market. Then these contracts are very strong, very structured. The 8-year receivable is almost $2 million. And then the value also is that if someone wants to enter ICICI Bank, India's largest bank, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time to build trust with them. We have taken so much time. So anyone who's investing, let's say, a bigger solar company or a bigger inverter or a battery, lithium battery company, would value that, the ease of entry into the largest bank. And we have a team, a very highly skilled team. and the carbon credits that we have accrued, which is already at about $2 million value, and the pan-India presence that we have, as I said. So these are the factors that go into valuation. And finally, we are what we call ourselves, we are ready for electric vehicle charging stations across those 500 towns. We have negotiations going on with the the building owners. Should there be a proper, partner? Should there be a suitable partner? We will get into the EV charging station also. So that's the broad valuation parameter, but it's a matter of judgment on what exactly is the valuation. But we think if the valuations are pretty good, and at this point of time we are trying to issue very limited compulsory convertible preference shares, just about 150,000. That's the only dilution. So I would be happy to talk to anyone who's more interested about it. So thank you so much, and I'll stop here and leave the time for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raghu. Fascinating presentation. I know you and I have talked a fair bit, and so I'll just leave it to the rest of the audience here to have them shoot their questions.
I have a question. This is George Brody. Excellent presentation. Your story is very fascinating. I was not aware of the fact that you were the person who took Dr. Jhunjhunwala's TDMA and tried it. I was kind of peripherally involved with him during that time.
Thank you.
The reason I wanted to bring him up is I visited him last year and before the pandemic. And one of the things he's working on is obviously the battery. He's got a battery center at IIT Madras. And this idea of charging station versus replaceable batteries is kind of orthogonal to each other. So what is your view on where India will go?
We have been studying this electric vehicle charging station, and we are focused on what I call as the rural vehicles, which is that three-wheelers, what is called as electric rickshaws, and retrofitted three-wheelers, which has electric motor. And we see that there is hardly any, and of course there is a surge in the sale of electric two-wheelers also. I think the charging stations with this kind of swapping, the race pit, what we call as the race pit concept, is what is going to work. So you have your battery and you come to the charging station and you swap the battery and you go. There are a lot of ifs and buts. But we are also exploring with a Japanese organization which has the rapid charging. A Nissan Leaf can get charged in about 30 minutes from less than 50% charging. That's on the CHAdeMO protocol. That is their rapid charging protocol. So we've been engaged with them for the last 1 year. Of course, this COVID has slowed down. But I think they're also ready with appropriate technology for rapid charging. So if you have a solar plant and you can extract the power directly into the vehicle, that is the best thing to happen. But if that cannot happen, you have to transfer the energy from solar to the battery and then transfer it again from one battery bank to the vehicle's battery bank. That is the other option. But we are studying both. But the potential is huge. So one of the reasons why these large Japanese corporations or other electric vehicle charging environment or ecosystem is talking to us is that we have access to 600 land and building owners. At one go, I can create a model and talk to these landowners and building owners who have rented their premises to the banks, and this is an additional activity for them. And most of them have shown positive interest. So at this point of time, actually, the entire thing is not proven. So somebody has to pilot it.
Okay, got it. So anyway, kudos to you. You're actually doing what Petroda did for telecom. You're doing it for power.
No, sir. I mean, Sam Pitroda was a great man. Not that much, but yes, it's a very difficult thing to do, and sometimes I feel, why did I give up the corporate world? And sometimes I feel that the turnover of the company is probably on par with salary I would have earned, but I kill those thoughts and say that somebody has to do this, and of course there are people. Russ has been very kind to invest. So as we go along, we discover like-minded people who say that we should we should support you, and it happens. So we
Yeah,
are at a stage.
I'll take this offline with you if through Ram, just to be able to connect. I have another interesting intersection with one of the companies I'm involved with. So
Okay.
All right, right. So I have this question. Thank you, George. We will be in touch. I have this question from Eugenia.
Eugenia
Yeah,
Katsigaris, yes.
right. Yes, we are looking at entry into Africa, uh, because not because we don't have enough challenges in India, but what is happening is that the global investments are all if you don't have an African story into your growth story, if you don't have Africa as part of your growth story, the money is literally not available. Because what has happened is that in the last 7 years, this government has been telling the investors, oh, okay, everything is powered up, which is not the fact. And so it's giving a message to the investors that, okay, you guys have done everything fine. But then individually, when I get engaged like this with each of you, then they understand that So we are talking to somebody in Tanzania, to be very precise. That could be our starting point. Uh, and I also, met the famous rap pop singer Akon. So Akon has got a foundation called Akon Lighting Africa. So Akon gave me a clear mandate. He said, "Sir, please bring a product which is made in India." So we have just figured out a way to have the lighting product, the home lighting system. So Akon Lighting operates. He has committed $50 million from his wealth into that. They operate in 16 countries. So I am in touch with Akon Lighting Africa also. So that should be our goal in the next couple of years to experiment.
Hey Raghu, this is Santosh. Very excellent presentation. Hey.
Thank you.
Yeah. The question I have is that it seems like you are focused mostly on the banking sector. How about expanding it? Maybe going into schools. There are a lot of remote schools. They don't have power and those things. Maybe you can bring the energy and the life to those places also. I know it's a challenging project what you are doing, and it's for a good human cause. I mean, so all hats up to you. But that's what my main question was.
Yeah, Santosh, we do schools. As I said, the CSR, the Corporate Social Responsibility Fund that we get from large companies. So the largest donor to us is Henkel, the German company. They've given close to $1 million so far. And much of it actually goes into microgrid setup. And within that microgrid in the village, school is an essential mandate. So we have close to 50 odd schools, maybe more, 60 odd schools running on our solar system. But all these are one-time grant. There is no way to commercially, run them because the schools are very poor, and there is no way that we can charge them any money. So we need a sponsor or a donor. So United Way, Mumbai. So we are also the India's largest or the biggest marathon is the Mumbai Marathon, which is now called Tata Mumbai Marathon, TMM. So some money from TMM comes to us. Some runners say that, like if you are running, you can say, okay, I'll give $2,000 to eHand so that they can put up the solar system. So that's the way we are working. But to answer your point, it is largely charity driven, goes through us. So to that extent, scalability is kind of limited. But yes, if you are donating money, I'm more than happy to do. Write a check for $20,000. I'm going to do that.
Yes.
Your fundamental premise is to prove a model of profitable enterprise, private enterprise, being able to do its share of its social impact, helping the social cause like this, right? That's what you're attempting to do.
It's like a hybrid. It's like a hybrid of commercial revenue and then the social impact expenses, and we kind of blend it, or we kind of cross subsidize that. That's the way you can look at it. If you take away the social impact, that work that we are doing, obviously our profits will go up even further. How do non-profit? I think this is from Rama. How do non-profit? Yeah, okay. So to understand, can you elaborate this question, Rama?
Rama, are you there? Can you explain that a little better?
Hi, Raghu. All I'm wondering about is, I know we're trying to do a fantastic job in terms of providing this service to the remote regions and underserved people, and still make a profit. But we just talked about corporate entities providing in terms of donations and so on and so forth. So how does that work with respect to, on one hand, we're accepting that and you're accepting that and doing wonderful work. On one side, you want to grow the company or grow the enterprise with debt and equity. So that was the question.
Yes. So as I said, the formula that we found kind of working well is 60% of the revenues coming from these more commercial focused, but last mile, where there is an impact in terms of financial inclusion or social inclusion, the bank, the kind of work that we are doing, and 20% revenues are from the microgrids, and then another 20% coming from the rooftop commercial. But the rooftop commercial is slowing down because it's becoming extremely competitive. We don't want to spend too much of time, so we might rather do more of banks. So I would think that a 70-30 or 80-20 ratio works for the bottom line of the company. And at the same time, we continue to, go back to the corporate world and say, look, you can help us to reach these. But you brought a very valid point. Not every corporate can give us money, because within their corporate structure, they have the mandate that the money has to be given to a proper non-profit organization. So in this case, the money comes to us from Germany. So the German headquarters, the foundation, doesn't have any such constraint, but it is routed through the Indian entity for the purpose of purchase order and implement. So we have this problem. So we are looking at actually creating a Section 8 company, the non-profit entity of eHands, very soon, and then put everything under that, and then keep this purely commercial for raising debt and capital. So that's the plan right now. Does it answer your question, Rama?
Yes. Thanks, Raghu. Thanks, Raghu.
Thank you.
So Raghu, one opportunity I still see, I don't know if you have approached to, Motor City, what we call here in Michigan. You have Ford, Chrysler, and, GM here. I don't know. I mean, it's a big organization, but at least if we can start floating the word, a lot of these cars these days are getting manufactured in India. So if there are, some initiative from that side, I'm just thinking loud,
Yeah, yes, Santosh, we are, see, I told you, I was on the board of United Way, and so United Way is funded largely in India. UW gets, the total grant that UW gets is about 250, 300 crores, out of which only 50 crore is raised in India. I mean, to put it in millions of dollars, it's something like 40 million to 50 million dollars is raised by United Way Network, out of which only $5 million or so comes from the Indian companies like Tata's and Adani's and Reliance. The rest, everything comes from Ford and General Motors and Microsoft and Oracle and IBM and all. But what happens is that, for example, Dell, the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, they have very clear focus only on education. Microsoft has focused only on healthcare. So we have to align our work with what they want. So that's the challenge. There are very few foundations which are open for energy access. So if we can align our energy work with Michael and Susan Dell's foundation on education with energy access, yes, it works. But as I said, right now we need to grow on our banking side. We need to, accelerate our growth because we see the potential, and that makes the company stronger. And then we will take on the social impact side in parallel.
Thanks.
Yes, good question, Mayur. Our earliest, earliest attempt was with the telecom companies. As I said, I worked in iShare, if you are familiar with iShare. So my colleagues are all, Badri Agarwal was president of iShare, the chief of supply chain was my very dear friend. I mean, entry into, in fact, I was on the board of an American company called Quintel. Later on, they made me the MD. And the only thing they wanted me to help is just walk into the boardrooms of these telecom companies without appointment. That is the kind of access I had. But the point is that industry is so corrupt, unbelievable. You will not believe it. It is so corrupt. The diesel mafia is so deep into that. We set up our first wind turbine, and it was going live in a place called Suchindram down south. And we were ready to knock off the diesel genset. And they were all so nervous. Those guys were. So we did some trials with Tata, with Airtel, with everybody, but it didn't go far. The fact that, the GSM association, the GSMA, which is a very powerful lobby, they had an initiative called GPM, Green Power for Mobile. They've actually given up. Now, countries like Bangladesh and Indonesia and Vietnam, Cambodia, they have more sites on solar as a percentage of telecom. So India has 4,25,000 telecom tower sites, and hardly 5% is on solar. Whereas these countries, Indonesia, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, are on like 20, 40, 50%. So I am told that things have changed, but we haven't gone back. But they would ask for an OPEX model only, what we are doing with the banks. They would say we are spending currently X amount of money on the diesel per month. Let's say they're spending $500. They'll say, you take this money and run your solar. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but we are watching. And we might do few sites. In fact, there was an offer from a common friend for us to take over. So the way we should go forward is probably we should acquire a smaller solar company which is already doing, let's say, 50, 100 sites, and create that entry. That's what we have been offered. Karthik is handling that. We'll see. Very interesting, James. Hydrogen fuel cell. Yes, it's I was part of what is called as Ohio fuel cell corridor. So in the state of Ohio, from Akron, Ohio, down south to Columbus, in the 400-mile stretch, there is a fuel cell corridor and many industries. So the US has demonstrated the effectiveness of this very well. But I came for a couple of events in Akron and tried to understand. It is very doable, but quite capital intensive. We would like to partner with somebody rather than we putting our money. So there are now Indian companies which have a joint venture with a US or a European company trying to create. But I think the kind of robust ecosystem that US has developed will take some time. That's what I feel. Without that, there must be a quick replacement to the filters, to the parts, everything. So I've been watching it for 5 years. It hasn't happened that rapidly in companies where they've invested. However, there is an Indonesian technology and they have done it very well. In fact, 1,400 telecom sites are running on this fuel cell in Indonesia. So it must be doable. If it can work in Indonesia, it should work here. That's what I feel.
Raghu, this is Dharmarajan. Very interesting presentation. And I had a question in terms of your service offering. Is it safe to assume that you source your different product needs from others and then put them together in setting up your systems? And if so, from a financing standpoint, since you're already engaged with some banks, there are some new, some novel financing techniques that are being used. It's called property assess clean energy funding, whereby the local city or the county pulls together different entities like a solar manufacturer, a solar installer, a bank, and then probably a design engineer. They all pool their resources, and where the city comes into the picture is that they assure the bank that whatever monies they say, in this case, if you are the guy who is putting together this package, they say go ahead and they'll indicate to the banks that you can go ahead and finance the costs involved. And the underpinning here is that me as the owner of the property where my solar system is installed, I'll be paying my monthly obligations through the saved energy to the bank. And where the city comes into the picture is that they'll stand behind the owner or stand behind the financial institutions and tell them that in case there's a default in the payments, I have access to the property owned by the household or whatever, or the commercial institution. So it's sort of a different funding mechanism that with the city involvement and it works at the local level because you have most of the entities that are involved in this partnership from within the region. Maybe that's one opportunity to consider in terms of growing your company. Yes. I'm sure you've probably heard of this concept before. If not, I can send you some more information on it.
Yeah, please send me more details. We're keen to look at such models. One of the objectives of or one of the byproducts of the branch powering of these banks is that the next stage of growth is also that the bank, because there is a proper solar installation working in that town, and in most cases that is the first solar installation. If you are familiar with India, the first solar. I mean, you are obviously. So the first solar installation in a very large town like Namakkal, which is a very famous town, was from us. So then people see that working in that bank, and the micro enterprises in the town start believing that yes, this can happen, and so we are pushing the bank then why don't you have a scheme to lend to these micro enterprises, whether it is a barber shop or a vegetable shop, or so we did this. So before the COVID-19, we were working with two large banks, and then, as you said, the underwriting was from SIDB, the Small Industries Development Bank. So that was a kind of structure that was working out. But as of now, this is not yet perfected. But yes, that is a way to grow, and that is a way to make the benefit of solar reach many more smaller enterprises. That's the model to do, and we are looking at it. So all of them are looking at product. So you are absolutely right. We are a system integrator. We buy the solar panel from company X. We buy the inverters or the solar charge controller and inverters from company Y, and we buy the battery from company Z and put together. And there is a significant element of intellectual input in terms of designing that. As we don't get paid for it in India for the services or the intellectual input. Everything has to be loaded onto the cost of the material. So to that extent, to be a service provider selling hardware is still a difficult game in India. We have of late started taking a stand that there's a massive amount of intellectual input that's going on, which is actually from our own experience. So we never undersize a battery or we never oversize a battery. But we want to make sure that the benefit of this goes to everybody.
I don't want to hog this discussion, but what about community solar concepts where you involve, say, a lot of entities to contribute towards setting up your installation, and they'll have ownership in proportion to what they contribute, and they also have access to the power. Is that concept?
Yes. So the microgrids, to be very clear, the microgrids are like that. So when we set up a microgrid with our capital, the villagers contribute a one-time fixed amount of anything between 1,500 to 2,500 rupee, and then we put, and so then they own it up. Then we negotiate and arrive at the monthly charge. It can be anything between $2 to $3. So on that model, about 16 microgrids are working. As I said, we are focused on the Himalayan terrain. So that's where I felt the maximum impact is required. And that's where there is no electricity. So we are in Uttarakhand, we are in Sikkim, we are in Himachal right now. So we will be entering Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh very soon. But those are pretty much on that model. In Maharashtra, we have about 20 odd grids, and they are on this corporate funded, what I call as a blended finance model. So the one-time capital comes from the corporate, and then on the ongoing basis for the replacement of the battery or the inverter, the community is contributing. And then, so we have even created what we call a solar cooperative. So then they own it up. And that's the way forward. That's the best way to do. And of course, my peers, in the industry, my peers have done much more rigorous work in this area, where they've put up a 25 kilowatt three-phase microgrids, where there is, even food processing. So, Dr. Russell Delucia Russ used to say, we are on the intersection of e-commerce and energy access. So working with the villagers, it's not just about providing lights. For example, in these 18 months, when these Himalayan villagers didn't pay us money, almost 2 years they didn't pay. And when we went back to them to collect the money, for them, at one go paying $50 was very difficult. So what they did was it was a bartering. They gave the kidney being Rajma. And it turns out that these are world famous quality Rajmas. And we have started, connecting them to the consumers directly. So we call it as solar Rajma. We did 1 ton of that last year, and the potential is about 400 tons. So we think that's a very exciting area to be, where we power the village. We also get them involved into the economic activity, whether it is any marketable agricultural surplus that they have, or some of these Himalayan villages are on the world famous trekking route. We are including them in trekking. We have another company which is called Hot Shower and Cold Beer at 10,000 feet Private Limited. We guarantee you a good trek and good beer at 10,000 feet and hot shower. Russ is a significant investor in that. And so these are the ways to include people. We are working on that.
And one final question, in terms of are you guys trying to push more DC oriented products like appliances and whatnot, because of cost considerations, and you don't have to go through all the
conversions.
Of,
yes.
You have better efficiency. Are you looking at that kind of a model, or is you?
Yes, we have tied up with a Bangladesh company called Solaric. They are the world leaders on DC systems. So in fact, the entire branch of a couple of banks run on DC. So it's the other way about. We produce solar in DC and convert it into AC wherever required. So the computers, the servers, and CCTV and cameras, everything can run directly on DC. But few things like fans and lights get converted to AC. So we have tried that. More important is a home lighting system. When you give 3 lights and a fan to a small home, it is better that it is a DC system. So we are working with number of, as I said, because we are a distributor and system integrator, we are looking at tying up with the right companies. In fact, one of the IIT Madras, Junjunwala's company, IIT Madras promoted company called Signi. So they have a DC water pump, solar pump. So we have just now installed it in a couple of places. We work with the Danish company called Grundfos, which has DC submersible pump, which directly works with solar. There is no battery, there is no storage. The solar or the wind directly drives the water pumping. So DC is a very important area, and I would think that India is still a couple of notch behind. Even countries like Bangladesh on doing research on DC, on how DC appliances can go in. But as part of the entity that I am on the board, the Clean Energy Network, there is a separate fund dedicated for DC appliances. So there are now DC mixies, grinders, solar dryers, even washing machines are being designed. LG is cooperating with that, refrigerators, a whole lot of equipment is coming up. I'll send you the link. There is a directory, or there is a compendium of DC appliances. These are all early stage enterprises which all of us are supporting.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed your presentation, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, Dharmarajan. I look forward to talking to you. Thank you.
Hey, Vinod and Alok, you guys have any thoughts, questions? The very core members of the TiE organization, Raghu. There were a couple of others also here. Ram Chennai from Houston was here, and I think he had to leave. But as you know, energy is big there, and they're all over this. I'll separately talk offline with him and see what inputs he has. But Vinod and Alok, chime in.
Raghu, thank you.
Go ahead, Vinod.
Sorry, hold on.
No, I just want to thank you.
So I think that we're addressing probably the most scarce resources on the planet right now in terms of fresh water and energy, and especially in rural and developing countries where the demand is going up because of what we all try to do is raise people's standard of living. So it's kind of a paradox that we don't focus enough on what do we do when that demand reaches beyond supply. And I think it's brought, the planet to its current condition of inflation and political meandering. And so it's good to see holistic models like this that can also make money for the founders and promoters. And it's a privilege for TiE here in Dallas to be able to present it and support it.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinod. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, Raghu, this is Alok. No, thank you for your presentation. This is great. I mean, like you said, for me, there's a lot of learning over here because, like you said, the social model is quite complex. And I think I look forward to learning that in coming weeks and see how best we can collaborate and help out. I'm a big promoter of big promoter of supporting all causes in India, primarily hunger and education, for sure. But electricity fulfills these two as well. So for sure, looking forward to if I can help out any, or as TiE, we can help out anyhow.
Very nice, Alok. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, we're coming up on 1.5 hours here, so I just wanted to add a couple of quick comments. With this new found awareness, if you will, on clean energy, climate change, and renewable sources of energy that is needed, and the awareness creeping in very exponentially all over the globe. Is there not an opportunity for maybe faster revenue growth, scale, and so on? I think we've touched on it briefly in earlier conversations, but I'm just thinking about it again in tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, and so on, while continuing the mission you have and build the private enterprise side of it much faster. Is that, maybe it's a loaded question, we might have a separate session on it, but I can't help asking the question.
No, you're right. This is a question that I come across very often, given my management or experience bandwidth. We should have been much larger in terms of our growth and sales. But as I said, we moved from 50-50 model of where 50% of my time or resources was going into only impact. We didn't count much on the revenue, to now a balance where it's 60-40 or 60-20-20. I would think that it will become 80-20, or as somebody raised this question, I would very soon set up a Section 8 company. The clarity about Section 8 has also emerged only in the last 2 years. The government has given more clearer guidelines. And also the foundations or charities are now very clearly granting money to foundations, including, international sovereign funds, are now giving money. So I think that is the next step, and that's part of the reason why I'm talking to TiE, that we raise money and Karthik is here, and it's for him to, step in more aggressively and bring his, people of his age. So the company should grow faster with more people on board with in the 30s and 40s. But yes, you're right. We don't want to lose the focus on impact, social impact, but at the same time, we need to arrive at a structure for growth. And I think we are there now. This 70-30 or 60-40. And with as I said, this $2 million, if we can raise quickly, this should take us to at least a 5 times growth in the next 3 years. That's something that is very doable. We should be easily a $2 million company on revenue, and most of it coming from the leasing, or the renting business. That should be possible. So it's now we are at the stage where lack of capital is hurting us. That we were never in that kind of a stage, but we are now very clearly in a stage where if we are delaying, as I said, 50 branches should have been rolled out by end of July. but we have bought time, quoting COVID and all that. But if we had money, we would have done those 50 branches by now, and that would add up to the receivables. That's,
yeah.
So I look forward to engaging with you
Yeah.
and Dharmarajan and others, and talk about it,
Right.
and Alok, and talk about it, and get us, help us identify what kind of help you can provide to us on this day.
Yeah, on that last note, Raghu, I think I may be speaking for the group here. In the new round you're raising, we might want to get a little better clarity on what the ask is and what the terms are and all that. So perhaps if you can share it offline, I can send it to the group here and
I will do that.
Generate some interest and see if we can maybe regroup and have a more focused conversation on that.
Yes.
Topic, and so I think there are a number of people that have that interest here in this group, and so we would like to follow that up. I'm speaking for the group here, and also along the same lines, are you at liberty to mention the serious interest and participation from this major big entrepreneur philanthropist from Chennai that we talked about, or
yes,
still not?
No, it's I have the permission from. So for the information of the group, Mr. Lakshmi Narayan has taken stakes in the company, and
for those of you who don't know, Lakshmi Narayan is the founder of Cognizant, the big IT firm.
CTS, Cognizant Technologies. Yeah, and he was the TiE chairman in India for many years, and he's considered an iconic investor. And Lakshmi has also invested in a lithium battery company, so he sees a synergy between eHands and this. And I have his permission to say that his bankers, wealth managers have cleared it. I am also on the verge of closing a discussion with a Pune-based big family, which is Anand Deshpande. They are the promoters of Persistent Systems, which is also a very big IT company. So Anand has personally committed that his family will invest in eHands. So as Ram said, I think they're all driven by partly this interest and commitment to invest in a social enterprise which is aligned to climate. And more important, they also see that there is a growth potential, there is a very clear revenue stream. So I'm very excited that we are able to attract investment from very seasoned and matured investors also. Yes, Ram, I'll come back to you with what we call as, you were part of CCP as round 1, and this round 2 valuations are going on, and I'll come back and share it with you. And then happy to have a call to discuss in more detail. Russ, do you want to add? I just want to ask Russ if he wants to add something. He knows eHands for the last 4 years.
You're muted, Russ.
Russ, you are on mute.
I think for this audience, one of the things that's important for them to understand is the uniqueness of eHands, of being able to create, both commercial and social impact, And part of that is because it's smart, not just technologically, but as a system company, and understand what blended finance can do in the context of India, as opposed to, for example, the US, where we have very interesting comments earlier by some colleague who was talking about what cities can do and whatever, if we could take one offline, I talked to him about one of my directors does in terms of that in the US state and packaging projects like that, and what you can do where cities and communities and whatever have a lot more financial power than you do if you look about communities in the Himalayas and others and what they can do. But what India has that's unique now is not just United Way charity, whatever, but the requirement of CSR, that's been mandated. So there's a significant amount of financing available from corporates in India because of mandates the government has put on them, okay? In addition, there are requirements for terms of local banking and other stuff like that. eHands has been unique in being able to do blended finance, okay, to achieve commercial and social objectives, okay? And if we're gonna have a world that's inclusive, okay, in broader sense, so we're gonna survive, okay, entities like clean, okay, whatever, and eHands has done, okay, are clearly pioneers in trying and showing that this can be done. Okay, full stop. Okay, and this is from someone who spent a lot of his time working just domestically before. Okay, I got taken into the developed world with one of my mentors, Raghu, years ago. Okay, and then now been involved in India, particularly, but in lots of other countries. And I say that this organization is unique. Okay, and I'm proud to be associated with it. Okay.
Thank you very much, Russ.
Thank you, Russ.
On that positive high note, I think we can adjourn here. And as a mission, as you know, TiE has giving back as a part of the mission, but at the same time doing it in private enterprise. So I think with the information you'll provide us, Raghu, I'll take it up offline with the group here, and we'll huddle and see how we want to take it forward and collaborate with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to take, you'll be sharing the deck with everybody. Am I right, Ram?
Yes. We'll actually put it up on our site also on the Dallas TiE.
Yeah. So my email ID is available. Happy to take any offline discussions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good night.
Everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Santosh.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Raghu.
Dharmarajan. Thank you. Thank you, Vinod.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. I hope I answered your question. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Raghu.
Thank you.
We'll talk
Thank you.
offline. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ram.
Thank
Thanks
you
for everything.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
We'll talk later.
Bye. Yeah, will be. Thank you, Russ. We'll catch up later.
Right.
All right. Yeah, Karthik and Priyam also joined.
Oh, I didn't see that shortcut. Oh, yes.
Thank you.